Hello everybody and welcome to God is Not Absent, a podcast in which we share stories of faith in the lives of New Zealanders today. This podcast is hosted by me, Apurva Patel-Kana, a young woman who has embarked on her own journey with God and is incredibly curious to know if God really is as dead or absent as many Westerners seem to think. I'm hoping that through this podcast we'll see how vibrant and how real God really is. Because if God really is not absent, well then, that changes everything. Well, hello everybody and welcome to our next episode of God is Not Absent. This week we have Teresa Minish joining us. Welcome, Teresa.
Hello. It's weird to be called Teresa Minish.
You've been married for so long.
9 months, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I suppose. So Teresa and I think we met at youth group. Yeah, we did. Yeah, at youth group.
Think so.
And yeah, we didn't really talk to each other much because, you know, she was in the cooler year group above me. No.
Paul was in the same year as my baby sister, so yeah, not cool.
Yeah. And I guess we got to know each other more over the years, but it's been really cool to see the different aspects of your faith, like when you lead at camp and with your nursing and just all the different areas that you're so talented at, but you also bring a really cool faith aspect to it, I believe. By the way, guys, Teresa is just super talented. She can do people's hair really well. She's mega amazing at sports, just super talented person. So
I have my flaws too.
Teresa, do you want to tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and, you know, your childhood? What's your life been like?
So I'm Teresa. I am a registered nurse, as Paul said before. That's been the last year and a bit of my life, which has been really cool. And I work in aged care, so really awesome to look after elderly people. I grew up in a non-Christian home, so this is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later, which will be cool. And I went to school here in Christchurch, classic Christian in Christchurch, went to Riccarton, I started coming along to youth group when I was a bit younger, and that's how I met Apurva and then heaps of other people who are now part of like my everyday life.
That's really cool. So Teresa, if we just jump right into it, my first question for you is, how did you first encounter God?
I went to youth group from probably about 11 years old. My mum always so I'm one of 3 girls, I'm the middle, so my big sister went along to youth group, and so that was something that I was like, oh, that's really cool, one day I'll be old enough to go to youth group. And so although my parents aren't religious or Christian, my mum always said she wanted to instill some good values in us, which is why she sent us along to youth group. And so probably from about 11 I started going to youth group and hearing about God through that, and so kind of getting to know who he was happened from about 11 years old all the way through until now. Obviously I'm still learning things, but the first real encounter I feel like I had, actually more than just the knowledge, would have been at an Easter camp, classic place where lots of people learn about God. In year 9 I went along for the first time, and I definitely kind of got to know more about the bigger picture of God and like interact kind of on a more spiritual level rather than just intellectual.
Mm-hmm. And what did that spiritual interaction look like for you?
That's a good question. I think probably more just like, rather than like some people see pictures or get words or those sorts of things, it definitely was kind of more of just a presence, like unexplainable kind of peace and stuff that just doesn't make sense outside of God. And so that was definitely kind of what happened in year 9. And then in year 10 I had more of kind of like a tangible experience where I feel like just like heaps of emotions and just kind of like a whole new level of understanding for who God is.
And so I guess throughout your high school life, how did your faith grow and influence the rest of your life?
So in year 9, when I kind of got to Easter camp and early in year 9, kind of decided all this stuff was really cool. I started leading at my younger, so the year 6, 7, 8 youth group. I went back and was a leader there and got really involved. And then all the way through until kind of end of year 10, I was super involved in youth group. Never really went to church because that was for like old people. And then, just kept leading and kept going to a youth group of my own. And then kind of end of year 10, I had a boyfriend who wasn't so keen on the whole faith and Christianity. And so I kind of fell away from God for a while, living my life without really thinking about it or caring too much about what was going on. And then good old Easter camp again in year 13. Went there, saw how cool people's lives are with God in them, and kind of had a refreshed renewal of like who he is and what he means and what he's about. And then left Easter camp, went back to my boyfriend, bit of chaos there, wasn't so keen on the whole idea. And so I kind of put that on the back burner again for a while. And then when I had my heart tragically broken at the end of year 13, I came back to, I was always going to youth group. The whole way through, I never stopped going to youth group, even though I didn't really care so much for faith. I found it was a really cool place to hang out with people who were really cool and really caring. And so continued going to youth group, and then kind of at the end of year 13, started taking everything they were saying a bit more seriously and thinking about God again. And then at the end of year 13, I got baptised and kind of recommitted myself to following Jesus. But there was a good stint of high school where I didn't really care too much.
Well, I think that's one of the things that intrigues me a lot about your faith, because you are someone that, like, on the outside, at least to me, it seems like you kind of have it all. Like, you're really beautiful, you're so talented, you're so smart, all these things. And I feel like your life on the whole, from what I know, has been pretty great. And so I wonder, like, why did God attract you so much? Why did you want to, take that next step and actually follow him when your life was already all these things? You had a lot of things that people want already.
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot of my life that lives under wraps that people don't see. So I definitely have had some real big challenges and some real big kind of trials of who I am as a person and what I believe. And so, I guess what I found in Christianity in early high school was like a place of belonging and a place of kind of understanding who I was and what life was really about. And so when I fell away from my faith, there was always a part of me that knew there was something better out there, but my priorities at the time were not that way inclined. Like, I cared more about boys and about my reputation and, those sorts of things of high school, that I just didn't care so much about everything else. And that kind of came with some consequences and some stuff that I went through in high school that was really hard. And that stuff is stuff I still deal with now, but is made so much easier having God on my side and dealing with things with his backing and with his image of who I am, rather than relying on the people around me to tell me who I am.
Wow, yeah.
So I definitely am a bit of a closed book to lots of people, and a lot of the stuff I've gone through has definitely shaped who I am and how I view the world, and how, with God on my side, I can kind of conquer anything that I have to.
That's just so incredible to hear that. That was, your confidence is based in something that can't actually be taken away from you, and that's really cool. I guess then my question would be, how has your relationship with God kind of grown, and what is it that you've been, I guess, learning about God over the years that you didn't realize beforehand?
Yeah, so definitely not growing up in a Christian household, I have very little basic kind of Bible knowledge, and the stuff that lots of my friends now learn through Bible school, at church on Sundays. And so I have a lot of foundational kind of Christian knowledge that's still growing. And so kind of alongside that, the values about God that are really instilled into people who grew up through the church are values that I'm still kind of navigating through. And so like getting to know more about God's character and how that then reflects on me and who I am has been something that's been an evolving journey and been really cool to work out. And the more especially I've been diving into the Old Testament a bit as well, and that's somewhere where you can find like little quirks about God. That's really cool. And so in Genesis we can learn quite a lot about who God thinks we are by like how he's made us and the things he set out to try and make the world perfect for us. And so there's definitely, the more I get to know his character, the more I feel like I can trust and lean into him to define who I am. Which has been a really cool journey to go on. And finding how much he like loves and cares for us absolutely without any conditions is something so hard for us to grasp as like just humans. And like I'm married now, which is really cool, but you know, there are things that Matthew does that can drive me crazy. And like just imagining unconditional love, like if he did anything in the world, like I couldn't just forgive him for it. And so the fact that God does that, and like because of Jesus we are forgiven for everything, then it's really cool, and that can help me to work out where I stand in the whole scheme of things.
And I guess then like, I want to go back to how your mum wanted you to go to youth group because she thought you would get lots of good values and stuff from it, and that was my parents as well, actually. And it seems like it's definitely a lot more than just values for you, right? And how do you kind of like what does your family think of this faith that you have and this relationship that you have with God?
So I'm pretty lucky, and I definitely acknowledge that my family is pretty open and pretty willing to kind of accept me and my siblings for regardless of what we kind of think, as long as we're not doing anything life-threatening, you know, or illegal, then my parents are pretty happy. So yeah, I have definitely faced challenges along the way with different things, but on the whole, my dad couldn't really care less either way. Both of my parents on either side are religious, so it's really interesting. They have been brought up kind of with the religious values but don't necessarily believe them, and so they also kind of have an understanding of what everything's about. But yeah, my dad couldn't care less either way. As long as I'm happy, he's happy. Whereas there's a few things that my mum and my stepdad have differing views on, and so that's always been a bit of a challenge to navigate how to still respect and honour my parents, which is something the Bible tells us is really important, while not challenging them but not breaking relationships and those sorts of things. So yeah, on the whole, I think I've been pretty lucky, and I know especially with the camps and stuff I do, some of the kids are going home to a lot less welcoming environments of someone who's decided to follow God.
So what challenges then have you had? I guess I want you to possibly explain a bit more the challenges that you've had in your faith, whether it's with your family or other things. But how do you think God has been a part of that journey of overcoming those challenges?
Yeah, so definitely I think one of the biggest challenges was like the whole high school ride, and just like where I put my priorities. So definitely going through like most of 11, 12, 13, my priorities weren't in the right place, and there were definitely people and events throughout that whole period where God was like trying to, you know, let me know he was still there and he was still an option, and that door was still well and truly open and nothing I could do would close it. And so that's been something that in that instance my priorities were very clearly away from God. I wasn't interested in anything, but that has been something that still carries through. Since I have committed back to God, there's still always priorities in your life that can kind of take over at certain points. So life being really busy with work and like needing rest, and so actually prioritizing still focusing on God in those moments. And so that's something that I think is like an ever growing skill, and something that God's still like teaching me. And if I look back, it's kind of been a different mini lesson in different areas of my faith journey. And so at the moment, it definitely is kind of more like, I know God's real and I know, he's really good, and that I lead a youth group and I do lots of things to serve because I know how awesome God is. But actually, I need my own personal time with God and actually prioritizing that rather than having a nap or, doing something that I find enjoyable, like knowing that if I still seek God in those moments, that will be really beneficial to me and to how I like my headspace and then also my relationship with God.
Yeah. How do you best connect with God? What do you do in your quiet times?
Nature is definitely somewhere I find it really easy to connect with God. I often will go for big walks or head to the beach, which sometimes can be really hard to do if you're busy. The beach is like half an hour away, and any good scenic walks are a good wee way away as well. So, but I often find just getting outside, definitely being inside really closes down, I feel like, my ability to connect with God. So being outside in like the fresh air and anywhere that I can see his like glory. I'm not super intellectual with like reading the Bible, and I'm not that big into worship music, and so depending on the time. So definitely for me it's like nature and just seeing how intricately things are made and just how clever God must be to do that.
I think, I totally agree with that. Sometimes when I'm like, God, like, are you even real? Like, I just look at a leaf and I'm like, whoa, it's just so cool that a leaf is, I don't know, it's just the stupidest thing, but it's just so cool. I guess now that you're still quite a young person, and you have many years to go, hopefully. What would you like to see more of in your faith? What are you hoping to see more from God?
Yeah, I feel like that's a hard one. I don't often look way into the future, but I think it'd be really cool I really thrive seeing God work through lots of people around me. And so I've been mentoring someone for like quite a few years now. And so I just feel like watching God work in others as well as working in me would be really cool. I think definitely continue on all the journeys that I'm going on at the moment. So continue to prioritize reading the Bible and getting to know God better. And I feel like the more I get to know him, the closer our relationship can be, and the more I can lean on him to make decisions and to kind of point me where I should be going. Just recently started in my career, and I feel like there's so many options out there, and sometimes it's a bit overwhelming knowing where to go, what to do. And so, I think just some direction from God on that would be really cool. Just continuing to see, like, in all my relationships around me, God moving.
How do you find direction from God? Like, how do you sense that in yourself?
I kind of just do what I think I should be doing until I get any signs not to be doing it.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, I definitely don't see big pictures or words or anything like that from God. I generally just kind of get the sense of what I should be doing, and I never planned on being a nurse. And so the fact that I am now a nurse is probably something that God's done because, growing up I never wanted to be a nurse. And there's just been a few people along the way who've said, have you thought about nursing? Well, no, not really. And then I had a look into it, and then throughout my degree there was every single placement I did, there was a nurse on that placement that kept me there and kept me interested.
Wow.
And I think without that, I probably wouldn't be a nurse. And I found some of the work not really up my alley and some of the work a bit boring. And so I think definitely just relying on the little things that God kind of does to steer me rather than necessarily looking for big signs or, glowing neon lights and those sorts of things. So I think I find it easier to look back retroactively to see how God's guided me rather than necessarily knowing which way to go next. But I just kind of keep doing what I'm doing unless I get any big doors slammed in my face.
Right. My next question might throw you off a little bit. Sorry, T. But I was actually wondering, how has God guided you in your relationships?
Like marriage, friendships?
Yeah, because I guess beforehand you were talking about how kind of there was a certain relationship that didn't go so great, and then you kind of went back to God. And like, do you want to speak into that a bit more? Because I think there are a lot of listeners that that are in that stage of, I don't know, trying to figure out relationships and things like that. And I feel like you have a lot of wisdom that you could offer from your own experiences. So as D4 vague as you want to go.
Yeah, so I definitely, so as a like early Christian, young Christian, I'd go on camps and stuff, and they'd turn around and they'd give you the classic advice of like, don't date a non-Christian. It just doesn't work. And I was always the one who sat there in the room and said, I can do it. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to be the exception to the rule. And kind of early on in my faith journey, when there wasn't anything that was directly impacting the relationship, you know, my boyfriend at the time could easily I was like, I don't care if you go to youth group on Friday nights. It doesn't really impact me. And I don't care what you think unless it kind of impacts me directly. So in those early stages, I was like, yeah, this is easy. I can totally do this. I don't see where people complain all the time. And then as like the relationship progressed and there were decisions that had to be made kind of about, well, where do we stand? What is this relationship about? And for most teenage boys, you can probably guess where they think the relationship is about. And so, yeah, I kind of had to make decisions about my priorities, like I said earlier. Like, do I prioritize this relationship, which in the long run was really damaging to my faith? And retrospectively, I can say that very clearly. But in the moment, I was a 15, 16-year-old who was absolutely in love. And, you know, this was going to be the guy's going to marry one day. And, like, you know, big dream.
Yeah.
16-year-old girl things. And so once that kind of all fell apart, and there were lots of red flags in that relationship, more than just him not being a Christian, retrospectively I could look back and see actually that being with someone whose values don't align with yours is really damaging to you as a person. And that doesn't have to be being a Christian and not being a Christian, but actually just having core values that don't align. You're then either constantly fighting about it or you're constantly shifting your morals to be in line with their morals if they're not willing to budge on it.
Yeah.
And so when it came to dating again, and obviously my now lovely husband, who's great, for me, that relationship taught me so much about myself and about what actually is super important to me in relationships. And that's not even just romantic relationships, it's friendship relationships. Like having people whose morals and whose like core beliefs align with mine means that, you know, you can be so much more trusting and more honest with that person.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when it came to finding a new person to be my boyfriend, then, yeah, those were all things I had to consider. And knowing that they could be someone I journeyed with in my faith as well was really important. And so, yeah, I think it's important to know what your core values are. And, you know, like I say, that doesn't necessarily have to be Christian or not Christian, but once I recommitted myself to God, there was no way I was ever going to go back and date someone who also didn't believe in God. Yeah. Because it was just so hard. And, yeah, constantly battling with myself and what I thought I believed and what they wanted me to believe. And so, yeah, now being with someone who, like, supports and encourages me in my faith is really cool, really important to me.
Yeah, and I guess that strengthens the core beliefs that you have in the first place. Yeah. No, that was so cool. I think that's a lot of great wisdom from a married woman.
Recently. I don't have too much wisdom.
So, Teresa, as we come to the end of the episode, I guess my final question for you would be, how have you found it, you know, coming from a non-Christian family and, you know, delving into this faith that where you have to learn so much and everything? How has that been for you?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a learning curve, and I think the thing that's been really important for me is finding people who are safe people to talk to about my faith, and people who have gone on the journey before me, and some people who have similarities to me in their faith and others who don't. So there's been a few people that I've definitely kind of got alongside and made important people to me in my faith. And so Matthew, obviously my husband, has been one of those people. I can ask him lots of questions. He's grown up as a Christian, so he has a lot more foundational knowledge than I do. So that's been really cool to learn from him. And there's also people like my mentor through high school, who she was Abby. She's amazing. She had lots of her parts of her journey that were similar to mine, and so I could ask questions without feeling dumb or without having to worry about being judged. And so, yeah, I definitely have found learning and kind of growing my own wee Christian family, as to say that I could, not having a Christian family growing up, I've kind of created my own pseudo family now of people who can support me, and if I have real hard life, questions about my faith or just about how to deal with situations, and yeah, there are always people I can turn to.
I think, I totally relate to that aspect of faith, and I think that's something that is really attractive about Christianity to me, is just, how loving the people are and how well they reflect the love of God. Sometimes not so much, but a lot of the time they do. So Teresa, would you like to introduce to us a song that has some kind of significance to you in terms of your faith, and tell us why?
Yeah, so I've touched on Easter camp quite a few times, so that has been a key kind of place for me in terms of my faith journey on multiple different occasions. And they have a really cool band called Satellite, and they there's lots of songs in their albums that I really like and will blast really loud when I am singing them, but there's one called Let Go, and it's a more recent one, and it was written by one of the band members, and it's all about letting go of the way the world sees you and the kind of expectations that people have put on you based on, your race or like how you speak or how you look, and just knowing that with God you can let go of all of those things, and he sees the real version of you and the version that you're most truly supposed to be. So if I'm ever feeling caught up in the things that people are saying or, the way the world views me, then that song is really cool.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for joining us in this episode. I think, you just have so many nuggets of wisdom, and I'm really excited that people got to listen to this episode. Well, that's it for today, guys. So we'll see you next time. Enjoy the song.
Weighing on my heart, Jesus, will you pull me up? My body's weak, my soul is dry. I'm here to say, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you. My weakness, confusion and heartbreak, anger and sadness, my lies and my mistakes, my vision, my language, desires and passion, my color, my difference. You know every part of me, so I can let it go. I let go of all the things that pull me down. I can let it go. I let go of all the lies I tell myself. this confusion and heartbreak, anger and sadness, my lies and my mistakes, my vision, my language, desires and passion, my color, my difference. You know every part of me, and I can let go. I let go of all the things that pull me down. I can let go. I let go of all the lies I tell myself. I can let go. I let go. See the real heart in me. You're the God who loves me, and you meet me where I am. Oh, you meet me where I am. Let the world be the world. Every day I'm gonna choose you. Every day I'm gonna love you. I'll let the world be the world. Every day I'm gonna choose you. Every day I'm gonna love you. Let the world be the world. Every day I'm gonna choose you. Every day I'm gonna love you. Let the world be the world. Every day I'm gonna choose you. Every day I'm gonna love you. I can let go. I let go of all the things that pull me down. I can let go. I let go of all the lies I tell myself. I can let go. I let go. You see the real heart in me. You're the girl who loves me, and you meet me where I am.
Thank you for listening. Tune into our episodes every other Sunday at 12:30 p.m. on Plains FM 96.9. Otherwise, catch us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Remember to stay in touch on our Facebook page at God Is Not Absent. See you guys later in our next episode.